I'm going to start off with Dr. Len Oaks with a unique new system that he's developed that combines brainwave EEG biofeedback with light and sound stimulation. Dr. Oaks received his PhD in social psychology from the State University of New York, Albany in 1973. Although specializing in school and clinical psychology, Dr. Oaks is also an inventor and has received the award for instrumentation from the Association of Psychophysiology and Biofeedback, the premier organization in the field. Recent interests include the treatment of epilepsy, closed head injury, post-traumatic stress, depression, addictions, and attention deficit disorder with the use of EEG and electroencephalographic entrainment feedback, he calls this process, or EEF for short. His practice is in Concord, California. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Len Oaks.
I'm Len Oaks, and I'm going to be talking about integrating photic and auditory stimulation with EEG monitoring. And when that is done, the lights and the sounds that you're used to when working with any of these sound and light stimulation devices becomes actually a biofeedback display for the person. However, it's very different from the biofeedback that's typically done from this standpoint. When a person hears or sees a biofeedback signal, that information is interpreted by the person intellectually. And that person has to try to figure out the relationship between what he or she sees and hears and what it means to the person. So let's take muscle tension, for instance. If we're dealing with muscle tension and the tone goes up in pitch, the person has to say, the tone is going up in pitch. I wonder what that means. Am I tenser or am I looser? And as the person figures that out, or some people use a conditioning model, as the person becomes conditioned to the meaning of the tone or the signal, the person begins to be able to voluntarily change the signal by changing their body status, whether it's changing muscle tension or changing skin temperature or skin moisture, or even brain waves. So there's quite a bit of work on brain waves done presently. Brainwave biofeedback that has been showing through double-blind controlled studies to be effective with addictions and post-traumatic stress. Generally, the protocol is with inpatients being seen twice a day for about a half hour to 45 minutes at a time. And 15 days later, total of 30 sessions, plus some preparatory work, preliminary temperature training. The people have been free from relapse for about 3 years. Now, this is about 250 subjects. The work was done by Eugene Peniston at the Fort Lyons VA Hospital, Fort Lyons, Colorado. Gene is now at the Bonham Medical Center in Texas, where he's in charge of a unit, and they're gradually pushing him upward, possibly to keep him from doing more research. So he's getting more and more administrative tasks put on his shoulders. There's another kind of application for brainwave biofeedback, and that is attention deficit disorders. And Joel Lubar at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, is one of the leaders in this field. And his numbers are not tremendous, but they've been reliable. And children with attention deficit disorders with and without hyperactivity are beginning to get off Ritalin. And this work is quite old now. This is not revolutionary work. There's a third application for brainwave biofeedback, and that is in the area of epilepsy and the reduction of seizures. So that's basically what is going on in the biofeedback field that predates the work that I've done. Then on the other hand, we have the work with photic stimulation, and auditory stimulation. Two fellows with the name of Harold Russell and John Carter in Galveston several years ago used auditory and photic stimulation working with children who have big splits between verbal and performance intelligence quotients. And after about 6 to 8 weeks, these kids are functioning better. Their IQs are no longer split. There's more of a parity between their verbal and nonverbal scores. Their behavior's improved. And Dr. Russell, whom I've known for about 15 years, asked me one day, knowing that I have a penchant for designing equipment, asked me whether I would design a system that he could basically plug into a cassette recorder where a therapist could make a tape in the office for a child using some of the heavy-duty clinical instrumentation that he has. And on this tape would be the information which would guide the lights and sounds for the child. So this could be taken home and used. And basically the gimcrack that he asked me to design was a thing you could plug into the cassette recorder, which would translate the information on the tape to information that would be inside the flashing lights for goggles or sounds. And in my typical adolescent negative frame of mind, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That tape may be relevant to the kid in the office at the time, but I don't know how relevant it would be for the child when the child gets home. The child may be in a different state of consciousness, and I don't know about the relevance of the tape. But what I said was, I will design a system for you, if you like, that would use the kid's own brain waves to set the frequency of the strobing, to set the frequency of the sounds. We'll make it use binaural tones. And this way, as the kids change, brainwaves change on a moment-to-moment basis, the feedback that the child will be getting will be absolutely custom-tailored to him or her at that moment. So he said, go ahead. And this is probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And since that time, I've been working with Bill Stewart, who works out of his place in Bainbridge Island, Stewart Enterprises. Bill, you want to raise your hand? Bill has put together some software that allows you to hook up various kinds of manufacturers' equipment, whether it be biofeedback equipment of different kinds, or CD players, Laserdisc players, and you can hook, almost in a kind of a modular fashion, one piece of equipment up with one other device. So we took Robert Austin's Synergizer board, which fits inside of a personal computer, and Bill wedded his, using his software, wedded the Synergizer board for the Courier with a biofeedback system called the J&J i330. And Jan Hoover actually lives on and works on Bainbridge Island also, probably one of the largest makers of biofeedback equipment in the country. So the BOSS software, biomedical operating system, joins the Synergizer card on one hand, which produces the lights and the sounds, and the Brainwave biofeedback system on the other, making the lights and sound strobing stimulation a different kind of a biofeedback display. So probably about 6, 7, 8 months ago, Bill started getting me the preliminary software, and in order to see what this animal was, I used the software in my practice in the Bay Area. And it's been downhill ever since. People got better very rapidly. They left. I've been depressed. My first person was someone who had 200 hours of brainwave biofeedback system, a la Eugene Peniston, using some very, very high-class equipment. And he's a Vietnam vet, had been having temper rages for 2 weeks at a time throughout his entire life. He was addicted to cocaine and alcoholic, primarily as a result of his time in the service. I guess it's a reward for good service. He'd had a head injury when he was a little kid. A car hit him. And in 15 half-hour sessions, he did improve a little bit with the brainwave biofeedback. His temper was a little bit better, but his wife was still going to leave him. But in 15 half-hour sessions, this gentleman no longer doesn't have any temper tantrums anymore, but he has a 16-year-old kid who can no longer drive him off the wall. And the disorientation that the child went through was really interesting, because he would do things to deliberately provoke his father, and he was bewildered that his father did not respond. Anything that would, any kind of stress that happened, whether it was wheeling his wife around from one hospital to the other when she hurt herself, or difficulties with the emergency room procedures and the stalls and the mix-ups there, or any variety of a number of other kinds of problems, would set him off. And gradually, over the period of 15 sessions, this disappeared. Another person, a high-level corporate executive who was in charge of human resources in a major chain store, came in, and she said, she's referred by her employee assistance program. And she said, all of a sudden, I am no longer able to get out of bed and go to work. Oh, what's happening? Well, she said, work has been getting scary lately. Some of the people that I fired told me that that my life was at risk, and and the lives of my family were at risk. And I'm just afraid to go to work. It's totally unprotected there, and the company cannot do anything to help me out. I work in an unprotected office up on the second floor of the building. Anybody can get there at any time. So she's quite depressed. So I did a little bit of psychotherapy. I think I'm a wonderful psychotherapist, and she just didn't get it. She was resistant, right? I said, how about biofeedback? She said, I've done biofeedback in all my human resources training. And she went on vacation. She says, maybe that'll help. And she came back from vacation. She said, I had a terrible vacation. I couldn't forget about work. I'm very depressed. I need something, some kind of relief. And of course, I don't want to go on medication. So I said, well, I've got this stuff here that I can try on you. You'd be a guinea pig. You want to try it out? And she said, sure. So she hooked up, and the first thing that happened is, oh, gosh, I've had a headache coming on. All right. You know, I turned the intensity of lights down. That's better. Well, then she had a headache coming on again, backache, you know, and I trimmed the frequency of the lights. Generally, the lights can flash anywhere between 2 and 30 cycles per second, or hertz. And I found out that she just didn't like certain of the lower frequencies. Well, the lights are on a slightly longer time at the lower frequencies. So I simply truncated the span through which the lights will change, and that brought her some relief. So the next day she came in, and we started up again. Oh, here comes the headache. So I just stopped the session. I said, what do you feel? She said, I am furious.